Hey there viewers, welcome back to Ray of All Trades. Today on the bench is a Stihl MS362c. Something's going on with the chain. He said it just keeps getting tight and then loose. We're going to check and see what's going on with it. Come along for the diagnosis. Chain breaks open. Chain is super tight. The guy who owns this knows how to tighten a saw, knows how to run these things. So yeah, he's right. Something's really bound up here. Just giving a quick cursory. Now, this saw is in beautiful condition. Yep. It's extremely tight. Let's see what happens when we just loosen it up a little bit. Like I said, I know this guy very well, and he knows what he's doing, so I'm sure we're going to find something. I just don't know what yet. Boy, even loosening it up. As soon as it frees up enough, it rolls right along. So what we want to check is how are these teeth riding in that rim sprocket. These drivers are dropping into that groove very easily. Like I said, I want to check it before we start taking it apart. I am actually leaning towards something going on with the bar. I keep seeing a skipping action occurring down here. Something really bound up tight right there. Alright, let's go ahead and check this thing over. Alright, so just checking the chain, make sure everything rotates like it's supposed to. I think we're going to let this one soak in some gasoline or diesel or kerosene or whatever I can find. So the next couple steps, while that chain is soaking, let's check the rim sprocket for any kind of damage. Pull off your E-clip, washer, and rim sprocket. This one's a Stihl 3/8-7, means it's ready for a 3/8 chain. It's got 7 teeth. And all I'm doing is looking at the quality of the rim sprocket itself. It's got a little bit of wear on it. Kind of curious if it was that chain wearing on it, chewing on it. Next item, that rim sprocket rides on this clutch right here. So if any kind of teeth were torn up, it would be slipping on there. And then pulling that clutch drum off, there's a groove right here. You want to make sure that that groove is lined up on that oiler. That makes good connection. Those two have to line up. That hole in that groove in that clutch drum is what drives your oiler. When it's on there good, it'll seat flat, and then you'll be able to put this washer and keeper back on. I'm going to see if I have one of those real quick before I finish putting this together. I did not have one, but I will tell my buddy to go ahead and get one of those ordered. They're super easy to change. I mean, you saw how easy it was. The washer goes on next, And then the E-clip. Always use a pair of pliers when you're putting those on. If you try to push it on with a screwdriver, they usually go flying. The pliers seem to hold it in place when you're working with it. I don't see anything here that would be preventing smooth motion. Just some dirt. So none of this would stop that chain from spinning properly. If you think about it, this is what's spinning and it's right in the chain. All of this is just holding that bar in place. Then, always check your bar, grab a straight edge. What we're looking for is any kind of anomalies with the bar, serious bends, anything like that. You know, the bar can have a little bit of flex to it. I'm just looking for a spot on the bar that all of a sudden collapses or opens up or has a huge, you know, turn to it. And finally, we're checking the nose sprocket. And that is definitely way too loose. What I'm looking at is the gap. The bar gap versus the gap here at the very, very end. That sprocket's floating back and forth very, very easily. So don't like that. And then you always clean out the bar looking for any kind of debris, catches, anything like that. You can use a paper clip to do this too, by the way. I'm just using a small flathead screwdriver. So I'm fairly confident I know what's causing this. Let's take a regular chain, for example. I said you had way too much slop. So the driver's right inside this groove right here, and they're coming around that same nose. Well, the chain is, the drivers themselves are made to be this thickness. The thickness of this groove, which should, for on this bar, be 050. This is an 050 chain, not the same one I took off, but it's got a lot of slop just on the regular part of the bar. All the way up here at the end, it's got a whole lot more slop. So probably what's happening is the chain is actually getting in these grooves and causing it to bite and widen up. And that's the reason why we're looking at these teeth worn out at an angle and so much play here because this is opened up. I'll try to grab a pair of dial calipers and see if I can figure it out how bad it is. Just for reference, this one is a fairly new bar. You see there's no play at all. It rotates smoothly, and you can kind of see the gap. Look at the gap on this one, and then look how much play is in that sprocket. So this is this sprocket's basically worn out. The gap on the bar is too wide, and for most part, the bar itself is opened up even more too. Yep. Just verifying, this is a 3/8 chain and a 050 bar. Okay, so here's a bar and chain that, while not new, is not that old either as far as runtime on it. So zeroed out calipers. Let's just measure the width of the driver. When I squeeze the calipers on the driver, we're getting about 0.050, pretty close. All right, so measuring 0.06 on a bar that is slightly used, so just a little bit wider than the drivers themselves. In the area of the sprocket, the one that's not worn out, looks like about 0.07. Something like that. And that's just because of it flaring out from use. 0.073, I want to say, is my highest reading. .075, something like that. And that's just the flexing of this bar, right? If it was factory fresh, it probably would have been a little bit closer to .06. And it just needs a little bit of space so that that driver can pass through with oil. And the bar will be stamped with the rating on it. I don't know if y'all can see that, but there is a 0.5, which means 0.05, and it's a 72 teeth driver. That is the part number for Oregon that would, or this Forester bar, that would allow it to work with the chainsaw this came off of, which is a Husky. It has to do with where the oiler is on the bar, the width of the bar, the mounting of the bar, and then where these adjuster holes are at, and that's where that arm comes through to pull that bar back and forth. So anyway, that is a bar and chain that is very slightly used. This one on this 362, let's take a peek and see what's going on. So this was an 050 bar and chain, and it looks like the drivers 0.05, 0.0495. That's not bad at all. Probably should check it more than one place on the chain. Yeah, so that one right there is 0.49, reaching to 0.475, depending upon where I'm at on that driver. That's just the slipping that it's been doing over the course of time. So I did soak this chain in the gasoline, and it cleaned up quite a bit of it. But I think just the wear of this chain is probably going to be enough to condemn this one. So now let's talk about the bar, the most expensive part here, right? So we already determined if you've got an 050 chain, the normal width would be a 0.06, right? Let's choose the very center of that bar. So this would be the least worn out part of it. And we've got a 0.068. Almost the same width as what that other bar had in the sprocket area, so 0.069. Let's move down to the sprocket area, which on that other bar was 0.07, right? So 0.08, 0.089, 0.087, 0.082, right in the middle, 0.086, 0.081. So a lot wider than it's supposed to be. And then you can see the width of the sprocket teeth on this one are 0.043, 0.05. Let's see how it compares with one that is fairly fresh. 0.05, 0.047. So you can tell that that sprocket is pretty worn out. And like I said before, what's occurring is since the chain itself drivers are getting worn out, and then this is getting worn out, that driver is falling between this bar edge and this tooth. And the flexibility just from the heat cycles has made the bar less rigid. And there's a pretty good chance if I put a screwdriver in here, yeah, it's pretty easy to flex this thing open. Which means if I mash it back together, it's just going to open up again because it's just going to flex. Just from heat cycles. So anyway, that's why we condemn that bar. I'd like to condemn the chain too. The owner is going to change those. He said it was easier and faster for him to change that stuff out. We're going to put a rim sprocket on this and give it back to him, so I doubt that I'll get that part on video. Thanks for hanging out with me on this. It was a lot of fun diagnosing. It's always a puzzle, and I enjoy stuff like that. Too bad we won't be able to see this one actually cutting in the wood, but if you guys learned anything, if you could smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, it helps us a lot, doesn't cost you guys anything, and I appreciate you hanging out with me for the day. Thanks.